Welcome. I know I'm a little extra. Welcome to the Faith Mama. I am super excited that you're here, that you clicked on this video. My name is Carly Faith Wilson, and I am a wife, I'm a teacher, I'm a mom of a beautiful 4-year-old baby girl, and I, most importantly, am a believer in the Lord Jesus Christ. In this video, I will be sharing my testimony, my journey to my rainbow baby who is in there right now after nearly eight first trimester losses. I'm not a medical doctor, I'm not a physician. I am just a person who has experienced the healing and miraculous power of Jesus Christ, and I want to share that with you. Before jumping into this video, I want to share that the Faith Mama is a platform for mamas who have experienced pregnancy loss, mamas who are still waiting for their babies, to receive encouragement and just to hear testimonies of other women who are going through the same thing. Let's jump into this video. I want to share a huge trigger warning before I start. I will be speaking about pregnancy loss. I will be speaking of miscarriages. I will be speaking on a lot of topics that pertain to grief on my journey. And if you're sensitive to that, I just want to pre-warn you before I jump in. Okay, so I had a beautiful, healthy pregnancy before this journey. I had a beautiful baby girl in 2018, and I had no complications with the pregnancy. She came out full term, she came out healthy, everything was great. It was December 2019. My daughter was, I think she was about 1.5. We were really excited. I mean, like over the moon. I remember taking the pregnancy test and like screaming and just being so excited and wanting to surprise him, but not being able to keep a secret. My husband and I are best friends. We met in high school. I cannot keep anything from him. We went in for an ultrasound for that pregnancy for the first time, and the doctor found the gestational sac, the yolk sac, but we did not find a heartbeat. At the time, the doctor presumed that it was just way too early. I think I was about 5 or 6 weeks at that point. Fast forward 2 weeks later, we went into the doctor's office expecting to see more. At that point, we should have been about 8 weeks. In about 8 weeks, you should be able to hear a heartbeat and you should see growth. Unfortunately, with that pregnancy, the doctor said, "I'm so sorry, you know, there is no heartbeat." And it took us a minute to get ourselves together. We left the room that night, and that began our grieving process. We cried from that night. It seemed like for months. We had scheduled an appointment because my body was not expelling the pregnancy naturally, and it was not a healthy pregnancy. There was no heartbeat. We unfortunately had to schedule what's called a D&C and get the pregnancy removed. That was extremely traumatic. The entire summer, I remember being depressed. So from the remaining part of winter to spring to summer, I was depressed. I stayed in the bed on vacations and weekends almost all the time. I kind of created this bubble around myself because it was just too tough to go out in public, get dressed up, see other women with babies after going through this traumatic experience. So that was our very first pregnancy loss. Forgive me, there's just been so many, and these are just, I say nearly 8 losses, but those are just the ones that we know about. In July of 2020, we got pregnant again. I remember writing on a whiteboard, after every storm comes a rainbow, and leaving the pregnancy test and the whiteboard in my bathroom for my husband to find. I remember us going to the doctor and seeing a sac and not seeing anything else. A couple days later, I did start to bleed naturally on my own. So unfortunately, that was a chemical pregnancy, which is an extremely early loss. I was devastated. I was devastated. It really put salt in the wound. We ended up trying again and getting pregnant in August of 2020. So with that specific pregnancy, I believe that we waited some time to go to the doctor. I remember tracking my pregnancy lines and seeing if they were getting darker. And I remember that they started getting lighter and I started bleeding maybe a week after receiving that positive test. And at that moment, I knew that something was wrong. I had been following all these trying to conceive communities and just being like, hey, like maybe there's something wrong with me. Maybe medically there's something wrong and I need to go in for a second opinion. We decided to explore our options with IVF and all of those things. I remember going in for extensive blood work on my husband's end as well as my end. Because they talk about both partners being healthy because you're getting DNA from both parents. So I remember thinking, well, maybe it's not me, maybe it's my husband. And, the enemy will really, I will say, got into my head in terms of paranoia and just getting really angry because I wanted this baby so much and I was willing to do anything to get it. But I wasn't consulting the father about what his plans were. Biologically, you guys don't have any hindrances from being able to, procreate together. So we can try IVF. But then she starts talking about the cost and, going through insurance and all of these things. And I'm just like, I'm tired. At that point, I was very tired. But I wanted this so bad that I even started going deeper into my own health. My husband was fine. So I decided, let me make sure I'm okay. And I went to see a blood specialist and they said that I had a protein S deficiency. And I'm thinking, hey, well, maybe that's it. I've got a protein S deficiency. Protein S, after Google and talking to doctors, has been linked to recurrent losses. So my doctor, my hematologist at the time, the person I went to see about my blood, said, hey, as soon as you get a positive pregnancy test, let me know and we will put you on an injection called Lovenox. It's an anti-clotting medication, and you have to inject yourself every night and all of that stuff. So I'm like, hey, like this is great news. This is amazing news. We'll do the Lovenox. Like, didn't pray about it, didn't ask God, kind of just went on my own in May of 2021, either April or May of 2021, immediately. So I told the doctor I was pregnant, and that was shortly after seeing her. And I began the Lovenox injections, and I was excited about it. I was like, well, I'm on the Lovenox. This is gonna help the baby. I remember asking my doctor about all these supplements that I had seen sustaining pregnancies. And I'm like, doc, if you put me on progesterone, like, this is gonna help the baby, because this is what I had heard. This is what I had read. And I was so desperate. And my doctor didn't seem too convinced with looking at my dates and with looking at what he saw on the ultrasound that this was a healthy pregnancy. But he put me on the progesterone anyway because he said it couldn't hurt. The next time I went into the doctor, we saw the baby, we saw the sac. There was a heartbeat, but the heartbeat was too slow. And he said that with taking the progesterone was sustaining the pregnancy, but it was sustaining a pregnancy that was not healthy. With that specific pregnancy, he did give me something to pass the pregnancy on my own because I didn't want to go through another DNC. And at that point, I really contemplated and I said, Lord, it had taken a toll on our marriage, our mental health separately. And I really said, Lord, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to be in control. I had been tracking my cycles, my ovulation cycles, kind of not really telling my husband, trying to line it up with ovulation cycles and, really trying to be in control of when I have these babies. God, you can have all these other areas. I submit everything else to you. I'm going to follow you. I'm going to serve you. I'm going to love you. But I need this part right here. I need to control when I'm having these babies. I need them now. At this point, we had gone through fertility specialists, blood work, about eight losses. And I was like, God, I'm going to lose my mind. I am exhausted. I'm tired. I don't want to do this anymore. I remember getting to this place of forceful contentment and then real contentment. Forceful contentment was like, I'm fine, like I don't need this, like everything's gonna be fine. And then getting to this place of real contentment with giving this to the Lord, like this huge part of my life, or this huge part that really, really wanted a baby, I handed over to the Father and I said, God, I can't do this anymore. I can't keep putting my body through this. I can't keep putting my husband through this. I can't keep putting my marriage through this. You know, my daughter can't keep seeing mommy lie in the bed. You know, I can't serve like this. I can't sing like this. I can't, you know, be in other areas in ministry like this. And I got to a place where I was content, and you know, I said, God, if you never, genuine contentment, if you never do another thing, God, I'm blessed. I have a beautiful baby. I have an amazing husband. I have a relationship with you. You know, I am so blessed that if you never do this for me, I'll be okay. So by the time I got to that place, I went to a worship night in June of 2022. And I said, Lord, you know, I want to go up to the altar, but I want to go if there's a prayer about pregnancy or fertility or babies. And that is my specific prayer. And I remember going into the worship night with that expectation. Lo and behold, we're in the middle of the worship night, and, you know, the person leading it, you know, stops and says, you know, someone on our prayer team is hearing the Lord speak about wombs and pregnancy and fertility, and they really want to partner with you and pray. So I said, I'm going to be obedient. I went up, you know, to that person for prayer. Very skeptical at first, I'm not going to lie, extremely skeptical. But I went up and she begins crying. And she goes on to share, you know, I can feel your pain. You know, I can feel, you know, the grief, and the Lord wants me to let you know that by this time next year, you will be pregnant. And I broke at that moment because I didn't want to know anything. I said, God, I'm content. And then here comes this massive word that by June, it was June 2022, that by June of 2023, I will be pregnant. And I battled with that. I remember going home, writing it in my journal, putting a date on it, and really second guessing, like, God, you gonna do this? Like, you gonna do this? You know, do I have to stick my hand in it? Like, do I have to track cycles? Like, how's this gonna work? And I remember him saying, just breathe. Like, I got this. The beautiful thing about receiving that word was I didn't need to do anything. I didn't need to do anything except for wait and trust the Lord. And from June 2022 up into receiving another word confirming the pregnancy, it was tough. I went up and down, not questioning if God would do it, but kind of questioning if he was going to do it, because right, God is going to do this with no medical intervention. I've had all these losses, and he's just going to do it, and the baby's going to come out fine, and I'm not going to keep having to go through the grief and the pain and the loss and the depression. Like, how is this going to work? So, you know, I'm continuing to serve. I'm singing, really not feeling like what I'm singing. I remember we were singing Joy is Coming in the Morning. It was New Year's Eve. And I was so grieved in my spirit, because I'm like, all right, God, we're about to go in 2023. Like, you remember what you said? Like, is this gonna happen? And I remember feeling like, I don't feel like joy is coming, but I'm gonna sing it because I know that God is not a liar. it was like swinging between the two. Like, is he gonna do it? Of course he's gonna do it. My faith and my reality were going toe to toe. And I remember saying, I know this is crazy to believe, but Lord, I trust you. You know, Lord, I believe in you. And there were some days where I would scream on the top of my lungs and battle with the prophetic word, the promise. And it was a tough season. Fast forward to January 2023. January 2023, I'm singing. Someone who was not at the worship night in 2022, in June of 2022, comes up and says, you know, the Lord has heard your cry. This is a prayer for moms who are struggling with pregnancy or fertility. The Lord has heard your cry and you will be pregnant this year. I was like, all right. Are we going up for this prayer? At this point, I was tired of going up for prayer concerning this thing. I've been in church my whole life. I was like, I don't want people looking at me. I don't want anyone saying sorry for me. And I remember in that moment when she shared it, I'm like, Lord, but I believe what you're saying. Like, you don't have to do this. You don't have to do a public display. Like, and really going back and forth. And I walked off the stage. I remember putting my pack down. And my husband came behind me and I'm trying to hold his hand and he said, no, babe, like I got you. I got you. And there was a moment where the person leading worship and the person sharing the prophetic word began to say the words full term. And at that point, I broke down and I remember screaming on the top of my lungs because I knew that this was God. Because the person at the worship night in 2022 and the person giving the word in that moment were not in the same room, but they were confirming what the Lord had said. And I remember screaming because in that scream was the release of the ounce of unbelief that I had that the Lord was going to do it. And that was such a freeing Sunday for me because I knew that my baby was coming. I knew my baby was coming, and that year, I already knew, but by June of 2023, I was going to already be pregnant. And after that word, I had such an expectancy. Like I didn't know when it was gonna happen because I wouldn't dare interfere with what the Lord was already doing and what He said He was gonna do. But I was like, all right, like, when you gonna do it? And just like, I remember crying on my way to work, like, the Lord has not forgotten about me. Like, He's gonna do this miraculous thing. And I began to understand why He had to do it publicly. But when the Lord begins to put your testimony and your story on a public display, it's not for you, it's for others who are going through the same thing. It's for others who need faith in that area. So I remember maybe a week or two after, no, it had to be a week later after that word had gone forth. So this was the second word, prophetic word. These people did not know me personally at all, did not know my story, nothing. So after that, I remember leading a moment of worship and being so boisterous in my faith. And it scared me and it was kind of cringy to look back at. But I remember saying like something like, you know, I may not have a positive pregnancy test right now, but I believe that, you know, my child is coming. And, you know, in the interim, we just have to praise while we're waiting for our promise. Something along those lines. And a friend came to me after that moment, after service had concluded, and her husband began to pray for my husband and I, and she began saying, it's their turn, it's their turn, it's their turn. Whew, I can cry right now because I've been watching so many people up to that moment have their babies and, you know, celebrate others and genuinely mean it, but still have that dull, achy feeling of when is it going to be my turn? And she began to turn, their turn, it's their turn, and prayed. The next day, I am in Stop and Shop, and I'm like, oh, this is dumb. Like, why am I in the pregnancy test aisle? This is so stupid. You know, I'm gonna get it anyway. I received the darkest positive test that I've ever received, taking it what I thought was so early. I'm forgetting so many things, but I remember screaming to my husband, who was at the bottom of the steps, and we were just in shock. We were in disbelief. We were in awe. I was shocked, but I wasn't shocked. I was shocked that that God did it so fast. But I wasn't shocked because we knew it was coming, but I was shocked at the same time. No medical intervention. At the time I got pregnant, I wasn't supposed to be ovulating. And if you're a woman who tracks her cycles, you know, you have your period and your cycle starts again, and you can only get pregnant in a specific ovulation window. And I was for sure at that time, I remember taking the trying to conceive option off of my smartphone, because I said, God, like, I'm releasing this to you. Like, this is out of my hands. And I remember thinking that we'd missed our window, and we fell pregnant when I wasn't supposed to be ovulating. And we also fell pregnant in the middle of a church fast. We ended up going to the doctor, and the doctor who had been walking alongside of us this whole time was just in complete shock. Like, this is perfect. Like, I don't know what to say. Like, everything looks good. Your dates line up. You guys, he said something along the lines of, I can encourage other patients like you. Like, this is an encouragement, you know. And I wanted to run around that doctor's office because I'm like, Doc, I don't know if you're saved, but whew, that's a word right there. I am currently 17 weeks pregnant. We've never made it past 6 or 8. So to be 17 weeks pregnant, it is truly a blessing and truly a testament of the faithfulness of our God. It's truly a testament that the Lord is still performing miracles, and that you can trust God. If you are going through this, if you're going through or experiencing pregnancy loss, if you are waiting for your babies, if your story is similar to mine, I just want to encourage you that we serve a God of miracles, and God has not forgotten about you, and he is still performing miracles without medicine in 2023. That is my story. I'm looking forward to hearing your stories, and most importantly, praying with you along your faith journey. The one thing that I wish that I did more was build community around myself. This was a journey that brought forth a lot of isolation and a lot of depression. And I remember thinking, God, when I get out of this, I need you to show me how to walk others through so they don't feel the same way or the gravity that I did in terms of the isolation and depression. So Faith Mama, you are not alone. I look forward to seeing you in the next video. God is still doing miracles. God bless.